I want to propose a scenario. You meet somebody new, we'll say a woman, and she looks to be kind of a mess. She has all kinds of things, and you can see very clearly that one of her big issues is her identity. She struggles with that. She doesn't really know who she is. She's trying to find it, and she's taken some very interesting turns in trying to decide who she is, trying to define herself, trying to figure out exactly what that looks like to be the person that she wants to be. And you have a pretty clear view of who you are. You have a pretty clear understanding of what you stand for. You know these things. And you see her as kind of a hot mess. And in that place, you're inspired by this desire to help her. To help bring her to a place where she can understand, where she can feel better about herself. The way that you do. The way that you look at the world. The way that you understand things. You want to help her. You want to help her get better. You want to help her be better. So you offer to help her. You give her advice. You tell her how you do things, how things are for you. And although you don't look at it on the grounds that you're better than her, you definitely feel that you're better off. And you do convey that message. Maybe not intentionally. Maybe you don't use those words. But you certainly convey it in the way that you share your message. She pops off and tells you that you're being condescending or that you're being judgmental, that she feels judged by you. Kind of scoff at this. And eventually you two part ways. I cannot tell you how many times I see or hear this kind of thing happens. See, the reality of it is that although it's easy to kind of take that, there is a side of this where you as the person are in fact judging this person that you're looking at. And see, where there's a truth of acknowledging that somebody's kind of off and even seeing them for what they are, there's also a side of it that's very important. And that's for us, as the observer, to not judge their circumstances being less than ours. See, the truth of the matter is that a lot of times when we have a perspective that we deem as being more significant than others, or being clearer on than others, we view ours as better than theirs. To phrase it in a better way, we tend to see the places where we are strong, and when we see those things, we view ourselves as being stronger than the other people around us. We view ourselves as being better than the people around us. Now, whether we would use that terminology or not is irrelevant, because ultimately, most of the way in which we communicate isn't vocal. It isn't verbal, at least. A lot of the way that we communicate ends up coming in our posture, in our tone, in our body language. That conveys more than anything else. And I think at the core of that ends up establishing one of the biggest problems that we run into, is that our heart and our perception of people does come across, it does get conveyed. Whether we want it to look one way or another, it doesn't matter how well we train ourselves to speak a certain way or to share a certain message verbally. What matters is the intent behind that. What matters is what we're sharing and how that's being perceived. We can say a bunch of things that are non-judgmental, but we can say them in a judgmental way. Our posture can be condescending. Our tone can be condescending. Our posture can be self-righteous. Our tone can be self-righteous. These things do get conveyed. And that's where we have to be honest with how we truly feel about things and people. See, if we're pretending that we're not that person, or we're justifying it, effectively saying, well, I really just want to help her. I mean, that's fine. Like, it's one thing to want to help somebody, but if you're helping them because you view yourself as being better than them, or better off, you're still viewing yourself as being better than them. You're still viewing yourself as being in a position of strength over them. And at the core of it, what I felt led to talk about here more than anything is acceptance. And the reason why this kind of little scenario is brought up is what kind of situation, what kind of circumstance shows less acceptance than you judging another person. See, at the end of the day, a lot of people, when they get judged, they feel rejected. They feel like they're not good enough. They feel like they can't belong. And at our cores as human beings, belonging is one of the most essential aspects of our development. Children need to be raised in homes where they feel they can belong, where they can feel safe. We as people, we seek out subcultures that are accepting, that will accept us for who we are, where we're at, where we can be comfortable, where we can feel safe. As a Christian, coming from a Christian culture, I actually just had to leave a church recently because I couldn't feel accepted. I didn't feel accepted. I didn't have a community there. I didn't really feel like I belonged there. That was the truth of it. God took me another direction. I'd been there for a long time and been honestly asking if, that's where I was meant to be, because I wasn't feeling any of the stuff that, they said they wanted to be. And that kind of gets to the core of this message and what I was led to address here. What God's been talking to me about for the last couple weeks, which is that point about acceptance. And more than anything else, it's Jesus's acceptance of us, his heart for us. See, the funny thing is like there are a lot of Christians, and we'll lower ourselves down from our exalted position in order to go minister to the heathens. And we never call them that, of course, but it's how we feel about them. And if we're honest, they're lower than us. They're the tax collectors and the prostitutes. And because Jesus did it, we should go do it too. We should go minister to them. But see, the thing of it is, when Jesus did that, the thing that we miss all the time is he did it because he saw something different than us. We see people who are broken, and we want to go fix broken people. And that's wrong. Like, I'm sorry, I know that people are going to, a lot of people validate this and justify it, but that's wrong. As a Christian, I've been leading groups for 6 years. It's not my job to fix people. It's no one's job to fix other people in church. That's God's job. That's Jesus's role. He can do that. We can't. We can help, but we can't do it. It's not in us. But see, also, it comes with a certain pride to want to fix people, to assume that we're good enough to do that we're better than other people. And that's not what Jesus had. See, his perspective on us was that he saw his brothers and sisters. He saw his sons, God's sons. See, God's perspective on us is that of incomplete creations. He created us. And see, the difference between Christian and non-Christian, one's aware of God, the other may or may not be. One professes to follow God, which may or may not be true. The other one just doesn't lie to themselves about it. Usually. And that's the thing of it, is like we're all broken. We're all searching. And see, the thing of it is that for us, we all share God's breath. Whether we believe in Him or not, we're all related in that sense. And as such, Jesus fought for and died, and more than that, when He was here, He taught to all of us, to all the people, because He saw the need. He saw our hearts. His perception of us was that of His brothers and sisters. It wasn't about us needing help. He saw our value, that kind of ideal personality that lies beneath everything. We always kind of struggle with feeling like there's a hole inside of us, or that there's something's incomplete, something's wrong, something's off in the world, and we try to fix things, we try to find things to validate us, and they never really do. We'll take on an image, an identity, we'll go help the poor, or feed the homeless, or take on a refugee kid. All these different things that Western civilization does to help out in our limited capacity to reason. And it never really sticks. It can for a minute. Maybe it feels good sometimes, but really it doesn't stay there, because there's a hole. There's a gaping hole that's crying out for something more. It's crying out for acceptance. It's crying out for a place, but it's a certain kind of acceptance, and that's what God offers. That's what Jesus saw in us. The need for that relationship, the need for that community. He went to the prostitutes and the tax collectors not because they needed help so much as because He knew they needed Him. He knew they needed community. He knew they needed to be seen. And therein lies the reality of our situation. Is that everything that God has done, God's church doors, from His perspective, are wide open. They're for all of us. And He doesn't see us all as better. To call your attention to a point is that when we talk about Jesus, when He talked about everyone, He called everyone evil. The disciples, He called them evil. These were the guys that were walking with Him, following Him every day. He called them evil. Because at the core of them, they were still just as broken up as everybody else. The difference between the Jewish priest and the prostitute was just a matter of social convention. In their hearts, there was no difference. They were just broken people. And that's the reality that we still live in. The difference between, in that little scenario, starting off, if one person is clearly broken and struggling with their identity, the other one's not aware of their identity of being prideful, and the destructive nature of pride as it pertains to community and anything interpersonal. The thing of it is that we need to understand, we need to see each other as people. We need to stop seeing each other as better than others, or better than us, or better off, or anything like that. We need to drop all those kind of conventions and those facades that we maintain. Those are all our constructs. We're not seen on that. Grace is bigger than society. Grace is bigger than culture. Jesus gave up a lot so that we could see his children, so that we could be seen as his children and be saved.